This is member-supported NPT.
Major funding for Charlie Rose is provided by the people at DuPont, originators of products and ideas that make a difference in everyday life. DuPont, better things for better living. And by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and the annual financial support of viewers like you. Charlie Rose is also made possible by these funders.
This is an American story. A young man without great wealth gets a great education, and he starts at the bottom with a little company, a UHF television station. He finds a partner, and together they build, brick by brick, a big company. Then they find another party, a financial genius, one of the world's richer men. Then they buy a network and make it better. The stock continues to appreciate and split and appreciate. They are tough, but they are gentlemen. And one day they get taken over by an even bigger company so they can do their thing on the global stage. The founder is Tom Murphy. His partner is Dan Burke. His backer is Warren Buffett. The company is Capital Cities, which becomes Capital Cities ABC, which becomes Capital Cities ABC, a division of the Walt Disney Company. It is now one of the largest media companies in the world. Tonight, a conversation with Tom Murphy. Welcome. It's great to have you here.
Thank you.
It's been a hell of a week, hasn't it?
It's been interesting. It's been exciting.
What's been the most exciting thing about it for you?
Well, for me is the feeling after a couple days that we made the right decision, that it was right for our stockholders, it was right for our employees, and I think in the long run it's going to be right for the public.
Yeah.
And,
it's been affirmed in almost every way.
Yeah.
I mean, the market's affirmed it.
Yeah.
Even your competitors have said this was a good deal. It
Yeah,
makes them tougher to compete with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Worth coming out of retirement for.
Yes, it was. That's right.
And a long way from Albany when you started.
I'll say 41 years ago.
Yeah. What were you thinking when you left New York to go up there and take over that little bankrupt station?
Charlie, I was thinking that it gave me a chance to run something. I was 29 years of age, and I thought I could run something. And I didn't necessarily have any reason to think that. I just inside felt I could. And the fellow that really hired me up there, and I was the first employee up there, was said, "Look, if you go up there and if you make it big, I'll see to it that you make $250,000 after 5 years." And he said, "If you don't, you should have big experience. You're still young enough. You can come back to New York and go back in the advertising business." Which I came
was
from.
Lowell Thomas an investor? Was it Cap Cities then, and was Lowell Thomas an original investor?
It was called Hudson Valley Broadcasting, which is the company we took over, which was about to go into bankruptcy. And Lowell was his business partner was a fellow named Frank Smith, but Lowell was the biggest stockholder. And the total amount of money originally going in, as I recall now, was about $750,000. About private investors.
I don't know if this is true, but I remember this many years ago, right out of law school. Someone invited me to come to your office, or Cap City's office, over at Madison Avenue, right off Madison Avenue.
Right behind St. Patrick's.
Yeah.
Yes.
He had an office.
He did all the time. We had pictures of all the wonderful places he'd been and all the wonderful people he'd met.
Yeah. It is said that you used to, running Cap Cities, keep on your desk a list of companies that you might want to buy.
That's right.
Was there no company for Cap Cities to buy now, before this acquisition?
Well, that's a very good question. For the last 7 or 8 years, once we finally, Dan and I had digested the takeover of ABC, we were looking at other areas, but we always wanted to stay in the area of our expertise, which was advertiser-supported media. And we could never find anything big enough. We obviously made some small acquisitions that made economic sense to us. So we were generating an awful lot of cash, and we continued to buy back our stock, which turned out to be a good investment for our stockholders. But we looked at other companies. We thought, trying to do with Ted Turner, we would have liked to have had.
Why couldn't you?
Well, frankly, and he would tell you the same, we would have had to pay him a premium to buy his company and then turn it over to Ted. And turning it over to Ted wouldn't have been so bad, but paying a premium, I just economically couldn't handle.
That's not in your style.
No, that would not be my style.
Yeah. What about a movie studio, like MCA?
We had a chance to, you probably don't know this, to buy MCA. I got a call once and said that Lou and Sid would be interested in making a deal with us and sell us the company. They say they'd stay or not stay. Talked to Warren Buffett about it and Dan. And the fact of the matter is, Charlie, we didn't bring anything to the movie business except money. Yeah. I mean, I do not know how to make movies. And we just wouldn't have felt comfortable in the business. And so we decided we just turned it down. So we could have. That's why it's wonderful to be in business, frankly, with Michael Eisner. Not only is he a great television man from his background, but he's a proven movie man. And on top of that, of course, the thing that Disney has that has a great appeal to us, it's not only in the movie business, but it's in the animated movie business. There's no one like them in that. As you know, there are no residuals for those cartoon characters.
You own those characters.
That's right.
Yeah. Nothing else, though, that you saw on the horizon to buy?
No, there really wasn't anything.
Yeah, you went through the list and it didn't click.
No, but I always had the list in the old days, but they were all, and ABC was once on the list.
Anyone else you could have been purchased by that would have made sense to you?
We had a couple of people that came by. Henry Kravitz came by to buy it. But he was very much a gentleman, and we just weren't interested in it. But we always wanted, Leonard Goldenson and I, over the last 10 years, by the way, Leonard Goldenson, one of the great men I've ever known in my life, and a real gentleman, still active with us, still knowing everything that's going on in the company, even though he's 90, almost 90. We always thought that the natural place for us to be is with Disney. And we talked about it often, and of course I've had conversations with Michael Eisner over the last couple of years, but we could never come to something.
What do you mean by that? Couldn't come to something?
Well, Michael's a tough negotiator, number one. And number two, he was always anxious to pay cash, and we wanted stock because we always wanted a ticket on the horse race. And now we finally compromised. We got sort of a 50-50 deal, 50%, almost 50% stock, 50% cash, and the stock portion is tax-free, so we feel our stockholders will get a ticket on the horse race. Because I think it'll be a very exciting company.
Yeah, he wanted to give cash in the beginning.
Oh, yeah. He would still like to do it right now.
How'd you convince him otherwise?
Well, he knew that that was the only way we'd make the deal. Yeah. And I think it would... I think it was a good deal for both of us.
The story is, and this story's been told 1,000 times over the this week, it is that you're out at Herbert Allen's media convocation. And Mike Eisner is leaving. He sees Warren Buffett and is on your board. And Warren Buffett, is he on the board or not?
Yes, he is.
You know, but he gave you the proxy some time ago to vote his shares.
That's right.
Which is an extraordinary amount of confidence.
Yeah, well.
He sees Michael Eisner sees Warren Buffett. They go over to you and he says he'd like to buy your company for cash.
Yeah, well, because we'd had so many conversations, he said, Michael knew that I still wanted stock. I told him I wanted stock still. And he said, well, can't do that. Can't do that now. Stock's too valuable. So he said, well, why don't you think about it? And I said, well, I'll think about it. And we thought about it. We had some conversations. And behind it all, on my part, so you'll know, is I was always worried about Michael making a deal with another network. I was not anxious to compete, me without anything like Disney, and have Disney in ownership with another network. So I did pay attention to the possibility that if he didn't make a deal with me, he might make a deal with CBS, for instance. And I knew he'd had some conversations with him. And I had felt that by this time, Michael was really going to do something. So we decided to think about, well, what kind of compromise could we make as far as stock and cash? And that's what eventually happened.
It looks like, to read about this, that Tom Murphy is saying, I got to do something because of the future. And Michael Eisner is saying, I've got to do something because of the future. Because you're both coming to the same conclusion, that you had to make something happen for the respective benefit of your respective stockholders.
That's true. I really think that that's the way I felt, but the only place I felt comfortable was with Disney. We could have continued the way we were, and the way we are right now. We really could have. I had a terrific chief operating officer, Bob Iger, who would have just a matter of time. He would have taken over as CEO just because of my age factor. As a matter of fact, he's got a 5-year contract. And he'll probably make more money with Michael than he made with me.
You could have continued. Did you have any reservation about being bought? That Cap Cities ABC, this thing you had lived with for 40 years, was being swallowed up?
Yeah, but I don't feel that way now that I've got a ticket on the horse race.
You got the Disney stock, so that makes it okay.
Yeah. If it works out the way I'd like it, I'll convert all my Capital Cities ABC stock into Disney stock.
Warren Buffett would the same.
Well, you'd have to ask him.
Well, I will. The dialogue that takes place, everybody talks about this great global opportunity. Explain that to us.
It's really true. The entertainment business, our television network obviously is different. But the fact is we own, which is for the United States, and we're expanding rapidly all over Europe, all over Asia, all over South America. The Disney assets, particularly the Disney Channel, which is not only here on cable, but is starting to expand all over overseas. The ability, the things that really travel internationally are sports, children's programming, and music. Well, the Disney combination in this case will have both children's programming and sports. And the ability to package those together, make deals, get on satellites, get on cable, get on terrestrial, whatever it is a great opportunity.
Does this mean that the most valuable asset of Cap Cities, or at least an important asset, was ESPN?
To Disney, I think that's true. The other thing that was very important to Michael was he feels he's getting boxed out of the children's programming on over-the-air television, because you think that Fox has got his own network, so that he's got Monday through Friday children's programming in the daytime, and then he's got the Fox children's programming on Saturday. And then there's the other, Warner Brothers is starting to go into its own network, so that he got feeling that he was being boxed out of the children's programming, and it's very important for him to have the ability to produce children's programming and sell it to the networks, because that's the same kind of product that he can use on his cable channel, the Disney cable channel. So it was very important for him to hopefully have a deal with a network where Disney could have a major presence on Saturday morning children's programming.
What do you think of him, Michael Eisner?
I think he is a brilliant, creative executive. Got to know him a little better in the last.
Would you add anything to that?
Yeah, he's a lot
of hard.
Well, I don't have to tell you that, because the world has that image of him. So,
yes.
And he'd be offended if I said otherwise. But he's a lot of fun too.
Was part of what you wanted to do because you wanted to make sure that you thought you needed some management and the brilliance of his management, because your people had not, because you had been there at the time to season as much as you wanted them to be?
Well, our people know. I was completely delighted, happy with our organization.
You would have been prepared to retire in a year or two?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I would have probably stayed around as chairman, but yeah, I would have been willing and pleased to turn over the CEO job to Bob Iger.
Why did you flunk retirement?
Well, my partner quit. So you'll know, Warren Buffett and I did everything we could to keep him.
Yeah.
He said, why don't you stay around and do what I ended up doing? But he had committed himself, I guess, maybe to his family and to his wife. And then, of course, he fell in love with baseball.
He had this fantasy that he could own a minor league baseball team.
He comes around right now, instead of looking at the ratings on a daily basis, which we get, he shows me the batting averages of his teammates, of his ball players.
Anything worry you about this deal?
That's an interesting question. Well, I'd like to see it go through. I think we have high hopes for it. We got a very good reception down from the FCC, at least from my opinion, and from the major members of the Congress that we saw, I guess, on Tuesday. No, I don't think there's going to be any Justice Department problem that people are saying they have to look at it. I think they'll look at it because we're in parallel businesses. We're not putting two networks together. We're not putting two movie studios together. They're in the theme park business, the studio business, and the merchandising retail business. We're in the television business, and the sports business, and the publishing business.
You love broadcasting.
Yeah, I do.
Do you mean, tell me about that.
I don't know anyone, Charlie, that has ever left this business voluntarily. You get up in the morning, you got to remember people are paying attention to what you're doing all the time. Lots of times they might be yelling at you. But we not only entertain the American people, but we inform them. And of course, the thing that probably I've been most proud of is being associated with ABC News. When it goes on the screen every night after Peter Jennings, or whether it's Ted Koppel, or whether it's Prime Time or 2020, and it says this program came from ABC News, and more Americans get their news from ABC News than any other source, that does something for me. That's a great responsibility. Broadcasting is a great responsibility. We were brought up when we first went into business with a licensee, which we were, in Albany, New York, at the UHF station. The first thing you still had to think of is, what were my responsibilities? What have I promised the FCC? Am I living up to the responsibilities and the promises I made to the FCC? I would like to think that broadcasting is a higher calling than a lot of other businesses. I don't mean to equate it with being a medical doctor or something like that, but I consider it I've always considered it. Maybe I'm just kidding myself, but if you've been in it 41 years, you know, that's the way it started out, and that's the way I started out.
What's your commitment? What's the obligation you have to the public trust?
We have to try to do the best job we can to serve the public, all aspects of the public. We have to hopefully be intimately involved in our communities, particularly of course, our televisions and radio stations are the one licensed, not the network. To be intimately involved in doing the best job we can for our community, being involved in all the things, informing them, being honest, being fair, giving something back to the community.
You know, at sometimes some of your local news has received some criticism.
Yes.
It's always been top rated, but
true.
some say that's because they understood how to, that it was eyewitness news.
Yeah.
Do you ever have any qualms about that? Because it was clearly generating top ratings, and you believe that as goes news, goes the station.
That's true. And if you're number one in news, you're number one in town. My reaction always has been, is not to give the public what I want, but give the public what they want. And it's obviously that's what they want. They don't want ponderous pontificating all the time. We can get that in small bits in our business.
Or as you've said, you can get that on public television.
No, I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
So you basically said, look, this is what the public wants.
Sure.
This is the kind of news they like.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're going to do.
You bet.
No reservations. That's,
now,
that's the reality of the world that we exist in.
You're talking mostly about local
news,
now.
exactly.
You're not talking about our network news.
Network news, the only questions have been raised. People look at how you've run Cap Cities, and they remember the tribute you have paid to ABC News and to Roone Arledge. Yet they look to the future and they say, this is now the Walt Disney Company. And does Michael Eisner feel the same way Tom Murphy feels? He spent 10 years, his formative years. Michael Eisner is a broadcaster hiding in sheep's clothing. He's fundamentally, he's just coming back to what he loved the most. He was vice president in charge of entertainment for the ABC television network. He knew Roone Arledge when Roone Arledge was doing all the wonderful things in sports many, many years ago. More importantly than that, even though that would be the most important thing, the fact of the matter is that the reputation of Disney is the most precious thing he has. He cannot do anything and will not do anything, nor does he want to do anything,
to the Disney name that would in any way damage it or in any way. And of course, fooling around with the news department would be the biggest mistake he could possibly make, and he knows that.
The other question raised about the deal, as you know, is whether Disney, with its infinite capacity to produce programming, is want to have more and more of its programming on the ABC schedule.
Mm-hmm. Well, if they've got good shows, the answer is yes, but otherwise, if they don't... By the way, I'm delighted to tell you that I've had conversations, because people have been talking about our deal with the DreamWorks possibly blowing up.
Right. I want to get to that.
I talked to David Geffen and Steven Spielberg and Jeff Katzenberg today, and we've had conversations, and I think it's going to work out very satisfactorily. They're happy to and anxious to continue with our relationship, and we certainly want to do everything we can to continue that. And Michael, of course, feels the same way.
Yeah, and Michael and Katzenberg
absolutely
have maybe have done something to heal that rift between them?
Yes, the answer to that's yes.
And so this partnership between DreamWorks, this great creative team they've got there,
we hope it'll work
will produce
out.
programs.
We have
for
a
ABC.
contract, so we have to have modifications perhaps in the
What's
contract.
interesting about that at the time, it got a lot of attention. This is the first time, as far as I know, somebody shared advertising revenue with a producer.
That's because we thought that much of them. But the fact is, in our business, we've always been sharing it, because after 4 years, if they have a hit, they clip us right in the head with a huge increase in the cost. So this is just another way of being a partner.
You have had to prepare at your desk and look at the future. When you look at the future, you see these combinations and companies like Disney and Cap Cities coming together, ABC. What's going to happen to CBS? Is your best judgment with CBS and Westinghouse? Do you think there'll be a battle for CBS now? Because, as you said, you were worried somebody else was going to come in there.
I honestly, Charlie, I'm never good at talking about my competitors.
Right.
And I really don't know. I really don't know.
What's your instinct tell you, though? I mean, instinct has served you so well.
I think there's a chance that someone will come in. I just don't know who it would be, though. Some of the people that might do it might be a little short on cash right now. But
Turner being one.
Well, yeah, but I guarantee you that people out there are thinking about it right now.
It's hard to leave it alone when you see this one network that's left, because Jack Welch is unlikely to want to give up control of his.
Well, I can't imagine anything happening at NBC unless Jack decides he wants to do it.
But there might very well, in your judgment, be.
There could be, I would think. I just don't know.
Do you worry about the combinations that could come together to be competitive, or do you say, let them take their best shot, because I'm so pleased with where we are, and I think we are so poised for the future?
Well, I tell you,
if we do our job, we'll be just fine. Thank you very much.
I've never, we've always run our own business. I'm always wondering where Rupert Murdoch is. He is one tough, able competitor, and so I'm always worried about what he's doing. But we're satisfied. We're in parallel businesses. I mean, this is not a question of bigness. What we're in, we happen to be big in size in this thing, but we're not monopolizing any particular area of business. So I guess if we were putting two studios together or two networks together, if that were possible, then you'd have trouble as far as Washington is concerned. But I do not, no, I'm not worried about other people coming in. I suspect they will come in.
How about the Baby Bells?
I really don't think they belong in our business. I mean, I really wouldn't, if a Baby Bell came in and made an offer for us now, I'd be horrified. Because I wouldn't feel comfortable having them own a business like ours.
Because?
Really wouldn't. I mean, I have nothing against them. I have many friends in the Bell system, but they're in the hardware business, and we're in the software business, and so I don't think that they're apt to do that, particularly against something like us. I mean, they'd get their attention, $19 billion. Yeah.
You've got to you're going to find it hard to step down.
Yeah, you're right. A lot of people are worrying about me.
Worrying about you not being able to make that decision.
Well, how I'll handle it.
Yeah. Your friends
including
worry
my
about
wife. Yeah. But this was the right thing to do. I'm really positive it was. You can't do it forever. And having young, aggressive, gifted, creative people involved, combination of Michael Eisner and Bob Iger.
How will you do?
And I'll be a stockholder. I'll be
You'll be on the board of directors.
I'm going to be on the board of the directors. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll be able to kibitz.
But you're a guy who loves getting up every morning and going in there and reading those ratings and talking to those employees, and you viewed it as family.
You bet. Well, yeah, but it'll just be a bigger family.
Let me go back to when you went up there to Albany, or even further back. Your dad was a judge.
Yes, Supreme Court judge in Brooklyn, New York State.
Went to Harvard Business School. You did?
I did, yes.
Yeah. Wanting to run your own business then?
When I came out of the business school, I remember a fellow named Pat Hogan, a friend of my dad, said, "Tom, what do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, someday I'd like to try running something myself. I think I could run it." I don't know why I thought so.
How much of an influence did your mother have on that?
She was very, well, I had great parents. I mean, believe me, there's no substitute for having wonderful parents. It's a great blessing I had. And, but my mother, you know, she always looked at me, and she always kept telling me, "You're the greatest." And, you know, your mother tells you got to believe it, right?
I know.
Yeah. So, yeah,
she'd say, there's this story that she put her finger, she was 5 feet.
Yeah.
And she'd put her finger saying, you're...
Yeah. No, she pat me on the chest.
Oh,
Said, "Look up," and said, "You're the greatest."
You're the greatest.
Yeah.
So
what does that do? I'd agree with her.
You...
I'm not, but
but it instilled...
gave me self-confidence. Yeah. I had times when I had to build confidence through I think the United States Navy gave me confidence too at a very young age, being out there and having a lot of people report to you. Then I went to business school and I did pretty well there, and that helped. So
class of '49. Was that the class that the dollars fell on? What did they say?
Well, we were pretty good promoters. I don't know if we were that good, really.
Your roommate was Jim Burke?
Jim Burke,
who's the brother of Dan Burke?
Dan Burke. Yeah. Jim, you know, had a great career as the chief executive of Johnson & Johnson.
Involved in partnership against drug abuse.
Yeah, well, he sees me once a week on that if I'm not given enough free time promoting it.
Dan Burke. Everybody talks about the partnership. He was, the first guy you hired? First or second?
No. I hired him. I was in the company, I think, 6 years ago. But I was in Albany all those years. And then when I finally came to New York, I hired him.
So you went up at a station?
I asked him.
Did he have any television experience?
No, but I didn't either before I went up there.
So what was your conclusion?
I just hired I've always spent my entire life hiring the smartest people I could find.
And giving them what?
Giving them a lot of authority and support.
This is a unique partnership in business. Warren Buffett has said it's like having Ruth and Gehrig on your team. How has it withstood all the strains?
We haven't ever had many. Dan is a different kind of, he's terrific. Just as smart as he can be, nothing but fun. But he was very good at handling the details of the business. He really was.
He was Mr. Inside, you were Mr.
No question. Well, he could have been either one, for that matter, and he would have been terrific. But he certainly was better in those areas than I was. And,
you were the architect and he was the builder, was the way somebody said.
Well, that'd be a nice way to say it. But he was involved in the architecture, too, and I was involved in the building, but much less so.
How did you get to know Buffett? Warren Buffett now, whatever.
A classmate of mine from Harvard Business School named Bill Ruane introduced me. About 25 years ago, 1969 or 70. And I was the smartest guy I ever, and was very quickly, had a dinner. Ruane said, "You ought to meet this fellow because they have a lot in common." And,
what in common?
Pardon me?
What'd you have in common?
Well, we thought the same way about business, that we had if you ran a business, you had a responsibility to your shareholders. And so we met, and I very quickly decided, geez, I better try to get him on my board. We were a little company, and I went out to Omaha to see we do that. And before I could get a chance to ask him, he could see what I was up to. So he said, "You know, I couldn't become a director of your company, for instance, because unless I was a big, substantial stockholder." And he said, "Your multiple's selling too high." So I said, "Well," but he said then, he said, "But if there's any way I can possibly help you, I want you to feel free to call me at any time." And that was his mistake. Because from that point, he was my most effective advisor and director, even though he wasn't a director. So we spent a lot of time talking. Whenever I talked about a deal or did anything, I always checked with Warren, see what he thought about it. And we tried to make a couple of deals once. Remember, we tried to buy TV Guide from Waller Annenberg, Ambassador Waller Annenberg, and that didn't work out. But of course, we got to Waller Annenberg. Wonderful man, by the way.
To know a little bit about you, I reached this. Here's an observation. There's almost as much of a story about the things you didn't buy as it is the things you did buy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, TV Guide. We
tried to buy it.
you went out to see Roy Disney?
Oh, yeah, I really tried to make that. Well, I tried to merge the company into Disney.
This is 15, 20...
No, 25 years ago.
25 years ago.
Yeah.
You go and get on a plane.
I did that before I met Warren.
You get on a plane, you go out to L.A. And you get an appointment with Roy Disney.
With Roy Disney, through Bill Ruane.
Yeah.
The same fellow
guy
that introduced me.
to
Yeah, so I guess maybe I had met Warren by that time. Come to think of it, maybe.
And you call him up and say...
I went to see him with Don Pelt, who was our chief financial officer, who later had a great successful career at Lynn Broadcasting. And we went in there, and we knew all these great assets were there in this wonderful company. We thought, gee, what a natural to have television radio stations. And it's the only time I ever talked with the company for sale, which I said I'd like to merge Capital Cities into Disney for stock. And we will run, Don and myself will run your radio and television operation, and if we do a good enough job and there are opportunities in the future, we'll take our chances. And he said, well, that's, thank you very much, Tom. And then he said, how about lunch? And we took us over to the place where they have lunch with all the people and with Mickey Mouse and all.
Mickey in the crowd.
And I didn't hear anything from him, but then Ruane went out there a couple of weeks later and said, well, Mr. Disney, you see my friend Tom Murphy? And who's that? And he said, well, he came out there with this other fellow talking to you about Murphy. Oh, yeah. A couple of guys from, I think from Baltimore came to see me. Yeah, but I mean, he didn't pay attention. I mean, he went right in it. It would have been a good deal, though.
Then.
Yeah.
You must have thought about that at least once when you made this deal with Michael Eisner this week.
Oh, yeah, I told Michael about it. He knew about it.
Warren Buffett, you decide you want, on that list on your desk of companies is ABC, probably on a short list.
Yeah, well, that, because we were limited.
Back in 83, 84.
Yeah, and of course we were limited on the number of stations we could own at that time.
But you got ABC on your list.
Yeah, I had always on the list, but Warren never thought I could buy it.
And then what happened?
Well, then the FCC changed its rules.
The number of TV stations you
Yeah,
have.
you go up from 5 VHF to 12, I think it was. So then I had a chance, and then I...
went to see Golan's.
Went over to see Golan, I think, on the 39th floor or whatever it was, and I said, Leonard, I don't want you to throw me out of the 39th floor, but I got an idea.
Yeah.
And I told him what it was, and he said, well, I'm not going to throw you out of the 39th floor. And I said, I don't know whether I can do it right now, but I'll think about it. And then there was some problem with... So a couple months later, when everything was set at the FCC, I went back, and then we discussed the possibility whether it would be for stock or for cash and all that sort of, but we, at that point, wanted to make it for cash, just like Michael wanted to make this deal all for cash.
You wanted ABC badly.
I wanted, yeah, and I was crazy about the its owned and operated television stations. Because I didn't bring anything to the network, because I wasn't, you know, I had no experience in the network.
Did you know how valuable ESPN?
No. Leonard Golderson told me, was losing money when we made the deal in 85. By the time, 9 months later, that we got through the FCC, by then it was about breaking even. And Leonard told me, he said, Tom, someday ESPN is going to be worth as much as one of your big television stations as you just took over. And I thought Leonard was, you know, he said, you know, I think he means it, but I thought he was crazy. But he sure wasn't. He knew exactly what he was talking about.
How much is it worth today, you think?
$4 or $5 billion.
4 or 5 billion.
Really,
and it was an afterthought to the deal.
It really was.
4 or 5 billion.
It's nice to be lucky.
You think it's luck?
Yeah, it has to be.
Case.
Has to be, absolutely.
The deal almost didn't happen. You finally decided, they were like at 125, and you were right around, what, 118?
Well, we thought we had something at 118, and then the investment bankers got involved with it because you had to get a fairness opinion and all.
The fairness opinion is where you get to have they decide.
And but they had the investment bankers in. I think it was first Boston, and the price got something like, they were talking about 125, and we were together with Warren and Warren's partner Charlie Munger and Dan Burke and myself, and it was just, we weren't that big that we could handle it, and it just got to be